Meta Perspective Podcast.
Good. Hello, and welcome to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your hosts, Alex,
Evan,
and the girl. This is the show where we talk about deep and interesting topics and try to get to the heart of the idea through multiple perspectives.
but if you are joining for the first time, please give the channel a follow and like the video. We do random giveaways and things like that, so it doesn't hurt to stay active.
And speaking of staying active, don't forget to jump in that chat because honestly, you're as much as part of this is conversation as we are. Because Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta
Without your perspective.
I don't know what happened there, but let's jump into the topic. That'll get this thing going.
Yeah. And definitely, join the chat. We got it pulled up here, so let us know what you think. Tonight, we're going to be discussing discussions.
Ooh, that's meta.
Conversations. Well, we'll start it off by saying that it's becoming increasingly hard to have conversations with people. I feel like in a lot of ways, I guess it depends on the topic. There's hot button things like politics, religion, blah, 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 all the stuff you're not supposed to talk with your friends and family. But, for the most part, ever-evolving world of so much stimulus, social media and things like that, it's really hard to connect with people and have a real discussion. And, on a deeper level, we believe that is kind of a result of the ego. Everybody wants to express themselves. They want to be seen and observed because that's really what really makes us feel like we exist. If you were just a person alone in the woods and no one ever observed you or anything like that, it's almost like you didn't exist. So in a lot of ways, conversation is a way to express your ideas and your opinions, even to friends and family or to strangers. It's a way for our egos to express themselves, and it strengthens our own sense of identity.
And you definitely notice that a lot when it comes to political conversations, where somebody who may not have the same beliefs as you, their ego can't accept that they could be wrong. So if you start trying to explain, like a source to back up your argument, that person will refuse to look at it. They'll just assume or even acknowledge like, well, I can't trust that stuff. Or it's like, it's almost like a natural inherent rejection where it's like, I know I'm right. Let's have a conversation about how I'm right. It's like, well, you might be wrong with this evidence. It's like, that's not evidence.
Yeah.
It's the ego in a lot of ways preserving its own ideas of itself. It's like, right. I am great. So what happens if we learn more stuff? Well, if I learn more, it might change me. And if it changes me, I won't be in this place where I've decided I'm awesome. So it's easier for me to just say, I'm right, I'm awesome, I'm this, I'm sexy, I'm whatever. Hold on to that one view and not listen to anything that would be outside of it to preserve that mentality of the ego.
And that's definitely a psychological phenomenon. I mean, that's the whole idea of defense mechanisms. Anytime our beliefs, our sense of self is threatened, that's when the ego tends to double down and strengthen itself. And really kind of what we're talking about tonight is there's a gap. There's a constructive discrepancy in talking to people nowadays, where it becomes increasingly difficult to get any type of point across, or at least, it's not necessarily about getting a point across, because that is the ego. It's trying to force a point. It's about, maybe finding a common ground or relating on some level. And most people aren't interested in doing that. They're interested in expressing their own ideas.
It's almost like you may not have full evidence to support your ego's decision that you're right. But you need to convince somebody else you're right. And it doesn't matter if it's genuine. If somebody goes, no, that makes sense, that's a really good perspective. The ego's like, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
It's I'll settle for that. We don't need to have the whole, I just need you to validate why I'm here. And if you can't validate it, get out of here, on to the next one. Like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm not trying to change. I just need to know that this is right. Which in itself, I mean, that's the ego, like, summed up. It's like, just validate that I am right. But what if I can prove you're wrong? Well, then I don't want to hear it. It's like, but it's the ego. Like,
Yeah.
your ego's not hurt from this? No, because you're wrong. It's like, it's self-preservation within this one aspect of yourself that really is rooted in selfishness. Really the ego is, to me, the ego is just another way of saying selfishness.
Yeah.
It's like an actively almost living selfish persona. It's like,
Right.
There's a selfish side of all of us, but that selfish side is almost like sentient, where it's like, let me take care of this. You don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Just, you're right. Everything's good. Let me take it from here.
Yeah. I mean, and that comes down to a psychological level. It's like, if you don't, the ego is the sense of self. It's your identity. So if you don't have an identity, then you don't exist. And that's why people want to be observed. That's why, we feel the need to, strengthen our beliefs and reject anything that challenges it. And, I guess what we're really getting into is, well, at least let me kind of just express how I view what kind of ought to be in this situation. Most people are trying to go through life and gain friendships and build strong relationships, and that is a beneficial thing. I think everybody should do that. The ego conversation type of mentality, it holds you back. And, you really have to get to a place where when you're having a discussion with somebody, if you are truly firmly rooted in your own beliefs and sense of self, then it's not about trying to influence somebody else, because it's very unlikely that you're going to change someone else's mind. I think we can all kind of accept that it's not worth it. It's just going to lead to conflict and strife.
It's your own ego. You can know that if I try to push my view on this person, they're going to reject it more. There's a way I can do this that would help them accept it by me relating to what they're saying and then bringing it back to what I'm saying in a way that bridges it.
Yeah.
But it's the ego that will stop that and say, no, you're right. You just need to prove to them you're right. You need to strong arm them. You need to belittle. You need to whatever you can to make them understand that you're right. Because the more you get pushed, the more desperate that ego's attempt becomes.
Yeah. And that's kind of where where unstoppable force meets an immovable object in a lot of ways. And I think, for anyone out there that might be relating to this idea, or if this sounds familiar in your own life, the prescription that I've kind of adopted, and you can kind of talk about how you see this, but in a lot of ways I've taken a somewhat of you could describe it as a backseat to conversations. For me, it's not necessarily about trying to push my ego on somebody else. I think what would benefit a lot of people is to almost, allow the person to exist, express their opinions, but it doesn't have to be a battle necessarily. It's not
There
getting
has to
you
be control.
anywhere. Right. It's
I can ask a question and you can politically, and you can give me your insight. I don't have to disagree, but I also don't have to tell you why you're wrong. I could just say, can you explain more? And I can let you get passionate about, I am listening. Tell me everything you know. That person is going to tell you everything they know. because they
Yeah.
want to. Don't tell them anything. And then once you just listen and you take everything, then you can say, hey, okay, this is what I see. Now they're willing to listen to you because they're like, okay, you're on my side. I believe you're on my side because you just heard my whole thing. So politically, we're together because you're like, yeah, you're letting me go and you're not interrupting. You're not telling me I'm wrong. You're just taking it in. Okay, I'm educating you. Great. Then at the end, I surprise you and I go, there's one question I have about this idea because you're saying this stuff. Yeah, exactly. So what about this? Doesn't that contradict all of this within your own frame of mind? Wouldn't this unravel the entire foundation of what you just sold me?
Yeah.
Now that person has to question themselves. But again, if I'm just like ask a political thing and that person just responds with a political thing, if neither of us are willing to make that bridge, it's like you said, it goes nowhere. It's unstoppable force, immovable object, just going, I'm rooted in what I believe is true, and I'm rooted in what I believe is true. And I look at you as wrong, and I look at you as misinformed. So I need to inform you, and I'm not willing to listen to you because what you're saying isn't true. So there's never a settle, because a lot of times in these situations with the emotion of the ego, there's no like logical part of you that sets in and goes, hold on, I'm going to be the bigger man. I'm actually going to hear them out. Instead of trying to argue and explain to them how they're wrong, let me get to know this one particular individual and see how they view things. Because some people may have done research and some people may have just heard what their friend told them after their friend did research. It's like one person's very informed and one person's not. Let me see what type of person you are. Let me actually hear what you have to know and how you back it up, and maybe you'll prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But if I'm not willing to be the bigger man and listen, we're just going to be yelling back and forth until it turns into punches.
Right.
There is no common ground. It is you're wrong and I'm right on both sides. So you're not trying to find a common ground. You're not trying to figure anything out. You're just trying to prove to somebody else what you think is right. Maybe not 100%, but you're like, I believe this. And you need them to validate that it's true. But they need you to validate that they're true. At some point you got to take yourself away and be like, you know what? I actually want to learn. I want to know. I don't want to think I know, because the ego thinks he's the smartest thing ever. I don't want to think I know. I want to know. So I'll listen. I'll be the person who says, go ahead.
Well, that's another thing too. Like, it can almost be a strategy of sorts. Is that, if you really kind of are formulated in what you believe, you don't necessarily have to force it on somebody else. Like, in any situation or conversation, it can be very easy to allow someone to speak, to give them that space for your benefit. That's kind of comes down to social dynamics, especially like, people that talk about, kind of like these pickup artist type of things. It's like, to gain friendship, you want to allow people the space to speak about themselves, to express their ideas and things like that. Like, people love to talk about themselves.
I would argue, though, the pickup artist thing, in my opinion, is disingenuous and
right,
and manipulating.
It is. Well, it is.
It's taking what I know and using it against you.
But that's with some type of objective in mind, and I think you really kind of, which kind of speaks to what I'm talking about. So, going into a conversation, you really have to formulate what's your objective here. Yeah. Like, one, if your objective is to convince this person that your way of thinking is superior to theirs, or it's the right way,
wrong.
then you're going to fight. You're going to continue to fight. It's not going to go anywhere. There's going to be tangents after tangents. There's going to be interruptions, things like that. It's going to get heated. But if you want to actually accomplish, if your goal is to gain friendship or favor with this person, build rapport with them, if your conversation is maybe this is somebody that could help you succeed, not like, you need this person, but maybe they could further your goals. It's better to kind of take a back seat, listen to them in a way that's not, you're not
It's better to have somebody wrong on your side than have somebody wrong against you. You know, it's better to be the fly on the wall that just listens to the conversations and then speaks when it's appropriate. So I could be in a group of 10 people I disagree with, but if I'm the one who's listening to all these disagreements, when I go to speak, it has volume because they want to know what I have to say after I've just been sitting there. I haven't been reacting. I'm taking it all in. They're like, this guy, we're telling him everything. And we're hyping each other up. We're really feeding into this with it, using each other. And he's sitting there just taking it in. Okay, he must be on our side. We're willing to hear you. It's those little things where you don't have to manipulate or try to trick somebody into listening to you. It's just saying, hey, you know what? If I really believe I'm a good person and I think I'm right, then what a good person would do is understand they're right and allow themselves to be challenged. And they would be willing to listen to somebody else because they care about them, because they're a good person. So even if I think this person may be wrong, let me hear them out. Should be the mentality. It shouldn't be, I know I'm right and I know they're wrong, so I'll listen to them, and I'm going to listen for what they say that gives me what I need to prove they're wrong. It's like, to do that is what most of us do, and it's putting people into categories, saying you're like a whole giant group of people who just, you don't know, your brain's not like mine, so you don't put things together, so your brain just has stuff. So let me find one of the things your brain has so I can prove it's wrong so that you can advance yourself.
Yeah.
That mentality is poison, and it's poison to your own mentality because you're never learning, you're always trying to educate. But if you're always in that repetitive cycle of educating, then you yourself are wrong. Even if in some of the stuff you're right, the fact of the matter is by not being willing to learn and change your perspective, you yourself are stuck in an area that, I mean, we can all agree life is way more complex than we can really boil it down to. So to think you're right about anything is in itself is kind of a fallacy.
Right. Because you could even easily be proven wrong. And it exposes you to that. And
or at the very least, somebody gives you a perspective that says, okay, maybe I am right, but that's also right. But the fact that these two things are right, but they contradict, means I might be right, but I don't have the full thing. So I could understand both of our things in one because it does go higher. I could stop and go, oh, with this solution, it accomplishes both. But when I just look at this solution, I don't see any bridge. This is the way we all need to follow. And it becomes this spiraling event where it's, I know what's right, but I'm not willing to give. The only way things work in life, through really any example you could give, from nature to man-made to anything, to the laws of physics. I mean, it's everything. In order for me to gain, I have to give. So in a conversation, if I'm always trying to prove people I'm right, there in itself, by definition, I'm not growing and I'm out of the loop. What I may be right on is a perspective that needs to be advanced that I'm not allowing to advance because I want to keep it at a surface level.
And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that, you know, if you're rooted in your beliefs and what you think, you don't need to be right in a conversation. You know, if somebody offers you something that challenges, you know, your belief and your ego, you got to watch that. That's when people get frustrated. But when it just comes to conversation, you know, consider your objective. What are you trying to gain from this conversation? Are you kind of trying to gain friendship? Are you trying to be observed and strengthen your own ego, which is okay in a responsible way? But, you know, you don't need to be right. Like I actually, you know, almost to a patronizing way, I will listen to people, totally disagree with them, and I will give them every indication that I see you, and, you know, what you're saying is valid and it's what you believe. I'm not going to contradict it, even though I know I could, but it's not going to help me. It's not going to gain me anything.
The reality
I'm just fighting. I'm just putting my ego out there and fighting with you, and it's going to result in a negative outcome, and that's not what I want. My objective is to gain rapport with you, or, you know, somehow just be civil in this. You know, if you go to Thanksgiving and you have a a cousin or something you disagree with, it's like instead of arguing with them, give them the opportunity to express themselves and speak, and don't be controversial, not because you're accepting defeat, but
Because you
being,
care about the
yeah,
person.
argument doesn't
The relationship
doesn't help.
with the person should be more important than whether you're right.
Exactly.
And by that, it's like there's a lot of situations in our lives where we know somebody, a friend or a family member, who does something that's wrong. And we don't sit there and prove to them they are wrong and they fucked up. We come to them with empathy and we say, hey, listen, you haven't brought it up to me, but I know what you're going through. What happened is bad. But you need to understand, like, that's not the end. When you come with that energy, people are like, this person cares. I want to talk to them. When you come with the energy of, I need to prove you wrong, you're killing friendships. You're basically saying, I'm more important, and it's limiting your own growth. It's limiting your relationships. Like you said, networking, everything. I got to use it. I can't
Sure.
focus.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Podcast. That's what it is. Not the beers.
Yeah, just to kind of at least sum up my perspective of all this. I've been someone who was pretty quiet most of my life. It was a struggle for me to become a social person, to be like socially adept at in any situation. A lot of that came from anxiety, things like that, and I was always worried about what I was going to say. Like, oh, how do I relate to this person? What do I say next? Blah blah blah. But I realized that the best thing to do is to allow other people that space, and then to find how you kind of fit into that. And you really have to take the mentality that it's not about you. In order to overcome this ego necessity to insert yourself and your beliefs or whatever, you have to kind of abandon all that. You have to tell your ego and yourself that it doesn't matter what I think or the things that I'm trying to say.
I assume that's
Sorry.
loud. I don't know.
Well, it kind of mutes it. But you have to tell yourself that it doesn't matter what I think or what I'm trying to say. If I want to be somebody who is accepted by this person or a social person, and that's the thing too. If you are strengthened in your belief and you don't feel like the world can teach you anything, then don't try to teach others things that you know. Let that evolve naturally, and kind of comes. One of the things you kind of brought up, it's almost Socratic method, in a way. It's asking questions. It's you're not trying to insert yourself or force your ideas or anything like that.
It's simply being kind and saying, I'm not going to assume you're like every person. I'm going to give you the opportunity and hear you out from your very original perspective, and I'll gather who you are based off of what you give me, and I'll accept it, and then we'll have a conversation from there.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is that if you're really trying to change somebody's mind, what is more effective? Telling them how the world is, or asking them a certain aspect about what they said. So why do you think the world is that way? And it exposes a logical flaw, or it allows it opens the door for them to explain and rationalize their beliefs in a way that maybe what they're saying is totally false and wrong, and you know that, but you're not telling them that they're wrong.
But now you're know that.
Questioning, oh, well, if you're right, then what about this?
Yeah, nobody wants you to just assume they're wrong. They want to be able to tell you their view so you can explain why they're wrong. So if I'm wrong, let me explain. I already know your perspective. Hold up. You don't. What you're doing is showing that you don't really care about me as a person from the get-go, and you're not willing to get to know me.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. And I think the best segue into this is to emphasize, like, to pull the ego back in, the best way to sum it up, do you care more about the topic that you're right on than you do the person you're trying to prove right? In other words, do you want this person to be on the right path because you care about them? Or do you want them to be on the right path because you want them to admire you and the path that you set them on?
Right.
It's like, what's more important? The information you're trying to get across or the person? Are you going to sit there and say, I don't like you, but I will educate you on how you're wrong? It's like, well, I don't want you to educate me if you don't like me.
Right. Ego wall.
But if I come to you and I'm like, I'm going to listen to you, I'll hear you out. Okay, now that I know how you think, I like that view. That's very unique. However, do you think that would change if this wasn't the case? It's like, wow, they actually heard me talk about that whole part. And that was really specific and boiled down. They summed it up like that. That's yes. Yeah, well, if that changed, I don't think so. Okay. So what if hypothetically this was more the foundation of everything you're seeing? What if it really is like this? In other words, like, what if this girl you're dating she's not doing all of this because she's nefarious and has ulterior motives? Maybe it really is a result of just reaction to trauma or something. What if there is another way you could look at this that isn't meant to hurt you? Then you stop and you go, you know what? I would look at that person totally different then. Yeah. That's how conversation works. Yes. When you care about the person you're talking about and care more about the relationship with the person you're building a connection with than you do the information you're using to prove yourself wrong and feel like you're right and feel like you're empowered and say, right, I'm a smart person because I know I'm right here. Well, are you willing to look at these sources? No, because those sources are wrong. Okay. You're right because you're not willing to see how you're wrong. Yeah. It's like, it in itself is borderline. It's a mental illness, but it's caused from things. It's caused from trauma. It's caused from never feeling heard. People who interrupt the most and just want to interject their thoughts into conversations and interrupt people. Those are people who need to feel validated. And there's a lot of us out there that just want to feel validated.
Well, everybody.
And that's the thing
every single person.
And I feel like we've been kind of programmed to that. And that's why politics have gotten to the point they have, is they've gotten us all to a point where we just want to feel validated with social media. Now let's get politics involved. Now that politics are involved, you don't want to hear the truth. You're still the same person who just wants to be validated. So both sides will get what they believe is true, and now they need to feel validated. Why? Because they're lost and confused. And that's really what it comes down to. And how do you get out of that? By just caring about the other person and less about yourself. Like, I love myself, so because I love myself, I can let myself go and focus on somebody else. Yeah. And love them. Now, if I don't love myself, it's hard for me to love the person who's telling me I'm wrong.
Right.
And I'm just going to recoil back into myself and be like, no, I'm right. I'm right. They're wrong.
Nobody likes that.
They don't know what they're talking about. They're stupid. And I'm going to get mad because they're challenging the only thing I have to really respect myself on.
And there's a very nice, harmonious place to be where you can give someone the space to express whatever they want and you listen. And, there's a difference between trying to convey an idea to somebody in a back and forth kind of way where they talk to you, you talk to them, blah, blah, blah. But the very harmonious way to do this is to both listen to them, you build rapport with them, they express their ideas to you, they start to like you because you're listening, you're paying attention. And then in order to actually, if your goal is to really kind of influence this person or change their mind about something, the best way to do that is from a humble place where you just kind of listen. Maybe you more Socratic with it. You kind of ask them questions that bring out the logic in what they're saying and make them kind of question their own self without actually saying, this is the way it is. Oh, but you said that, but what? Can you explain that a little bit? I don't understand it in the context of this. That's going to cause somebody to kind of almost qualify to you in the case that they have to rationalize their beliefs now, and their ego has to basically be like, oh, well, maybe I looked stupid. Maybe I need to explain myself more. Maybe I need to blah, blah, blah. And then that person is now in a very, in a much better state. If your goal is to really influence them, now they are willing to accept it. Whereas before, in this back and forth ego battle kind of thing, they're closed off. You're only going to get rejection, and it's going to escalate.
Yeah.
But for me, like I said again, it's like someone who's rooted in my beliefs. I can have a conversation with anybody, and it's rare that they would actually challenge what I believe or what I think. And if they do, then I'm engaged in that conversation. I'm like, oh, you know what? I never thought about that. This, and this. Now it's making sense based on what you said, and then it evolves from there. And it's an interesting conversation where I'm not trying to win any conversational points or battles or whatever. That truly influenced me. And if it's not that kind of conversation, then why are you trying to influence someone else? Because it's not going to work out that way. It's not going to play out in your mind that you can convince somebody to join your clan or your fucking cult or something and drink the Kool-Aid with you or whatever. That's like an extreme way to say it, but
no, seriously. I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is culty on almost every level for most individuals. I mean, what it really comes down to is, do you care about other people? I mean, that's the foundation.
Most people don't.
It's like, I literally hear people who are like, I care about people, and that's why you're wrong. That's why you're terrible. That's why I hate you. And you're like, but I also care about people. So it becomes this whole thing where it's like, at its roots, if you really care about people, you would want them to believe the truth and not believe lies. So what it comes down to is, I can't say that 100% I know I'm right about everything. I can't say that. So if I talk about somebody and I genuinely care about them and I think they may be wrong, I can't make an assessment on whether they're right or wrong until I know how they view the situation. Now, you can tell me something, and that might trigger me to pre-assume your perspective. But if I sit down and I really hear you out, like you said, I might go, I still disagree with the logic. So in my head, I might still disagree with what they're saying. But that is an interesting way to view it. I never saw it from that angle. I still think they're wrong, but the way they look at it is fascinating. And it gives me insight into this person. What a creative person. I might think they're wrong. Now, I'm not saying they are, but I might think they are because I think I'm right. But let's figure this out. Now I'm intrigued. This is an intellectual, creative, unique person. Now that I see them for who they are and I've heard them out, I want to say something to really challenge them and see how they view this. Now that person, because I listened and I cared, they're going to genuinely listen to everything I say. And I say this because there are plenty of people in the political realm where it's you and 10 buddies. And maybe all of you aren't 100% sure. None of us know politically what's going on. We're all left in the dark. Left and right, none of us really know what's going on.
Well, it's a game of telephone.
It's so complex and it's so rooted at this point that it's like, we don't know because we don't really even know the people who do know what's going on.
Most of our opinions aren't our own. We heard them from
exactly.
people.
So when you sit there and you understand that, then you go, I think I have put together the right way to view this. However, I have to always be willing to change and always be willing to listen. And if I take that side to somebody with an opposing political view, and I listen to them and I hear them out and they just get to speak their entire mind and their whole perspective of how they see this. And I don't give them faces. I don't show them that while they're talking, I'm judging them. I'm sitting here going, I just genuinely want to know how you see this. Because maybe I'm wrong. So let me try to absorb your frame of mind. Just keep telling me. I'm listening to everything. I'm trying to see it the way you're seeing it. I'm hearing you. The thing is those other 10 friends they have, they'll just back and forth jump. Oh, well, this. Oh, yeah, this. Oh, political leader did this. Oh, yeah, and he did this. And they just keep bouncing back and forth. They don't have a single deep conversation. They just keep bouncing back and forth. And it's almost like all of their egos are just reaffirming, hey, we're all right. We're all right. You're right. You're right. I'm right, too. You're right. It's like we don't need to have a conversation with substance that has any proof that we're right. But as long as we can all mutually agree and we're all jumping in, throwing in random snippets, we're like, yeah, I agree with that. that sentence and that sentence, and we're all right. We're all correct. If you believe that, then you talk to somebody on the opposing side who genuinely just lets you talk, and they don't keep jumping in. They don't try to tell you you're wrong. They don't try to tell you you're right. They just sit there and just take it in. You will feel more connected and closer to this random stranger with opposing views than you would to your best friends who never let you talk because they don't want to let you finish the sentence because they subconsciously don't know either. So it's like, let me just throw this in.
And it's funny that you say that, because when you give someone that space and then they truly feel like they have the floor and they can tell you, they can influence you now, they'll talk for maybe 10 seconds and 15 seconds, and then they start to lose steam and they realize that there's no substance behind what they're so passionate about. And for some reason their argument starts to fall flat because they're not fighting you. You're just listening. So
now you have to be logical.
If they're not rooted in their beliefs like we've been talking about, then they're not going to have anything to say after 10, 15 seconds. And it's going to start to die off. The emotion's not going to be there. And people are used to this back and forth argument kind of battle, and that's what we're talking about, the ego battles. So if you really give someone the floor and you really kind of inquisitively question them on something and allow them to respond or speak to it, if they're just listening, if they're just getting their opinions from other people that they hear online or the people that they follow and trust, you realize that that's not actually their opinion. They're so passionate about these things, but they actually don't. Those aren't their ideas. So they can only get 20 seconds in, and then this starts to die off because for them, for their egos or whatever, there's no objective goal. If they're trying to convince you of something and you're sitting there listening to them, they're just going to talk, and maybe they start talking in circles and repeating themselves and kind of do the
because they're trying to
Kamala
get a
Harris thing, oh, that's an interesting question. Well,
they're
what
trying to get
is
you
a
to react
question?
and jump in, but when you just sit there and listen and they keep going, then it gets to the point where they're like, okay, these things I say that usually get a reaction, and then I just go on autopilot and argue. If you're not going to give me a reaction, then I have to keep going.
Oh, I've never been here before.
Exactly.
I've never got this far.
And I would say some of my favorite reactions are the people who you can tell actually do think about the stuff.
Yeah.
But within their groups aren't able to really talk about it. And those are my favorite because it starts out heated. Even just me, I'll ask a question what? And they react negatively. And I'm like, I'm just asking a question. I'm not this isn't provocative. This is general.
Yeah.
But you responded, you
implied
agitated.
so many things in your response.
You came out kind of hard and heavy. I'm ready to argue. And I sat there and I said, I mean, that's a good point. How do you see that? And that person goes, oh, well, it's like this, and they're still got the energy. It's like this and that and blah blah blah. If you let them keep talking, one of my favorite transitions is when you see a person drop the act and then go into themselves, and they're like, this is how I really see this. And it goes from this and that and blah blah blah. I'm trying to prove you wrong, and the energy is you're arguing with me, and as you don't, that goes away, and they're like, okay, so this is how I see it. And it's like you get them to a place where they feel safe just opening up, and then they tell you how they really view it. That's, if you really cared about people, that's how you would approach every conversation, whether it's religious, political, whatever. It should be, hey, I know how I view things, but no matter what, we're the same thing. We're both humans, and I want to love you the way I love myself.
Yeah.
And I want to show you the same respect to you that I would show to myself. So if I'm going to do this, I can't in my head have a goal be, I'm going to prove you wrong. I have to, in my head, have the goal be, I want to understand.
Right.
And how do I understand? By getting to know you. Why? Because I care about you. Now, if I don't really care about you, I don't want to get to know you, I'm going to try to prove you wrong. And if you start conversations like that, if you try to end conversations like that, I will notice it. And I want it to be a thing that more people notice and go, hey, the way you're handling this conversation comes off more like you just want to prove to me that I'm wrong without really getting to know me or understand if I'm right. So it's like, I could be right, but you don't want to hear it. You just kind of want to hurt me and drag me down. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, if I like, and that's what it comes down to, is you have to be the bigger man and say, you know what, this person is agitated. Clearly, they've had terrible conversations with politics with friends and family in the past. Probably, I'm going to be different. They don't even want to hear what I have to say. That's fine. I love this person, and I want to hear what they have to say. They got a story that nobody's listening to, and I can tell. The as agitated as they are, nobody's listening to them. I'm going to be the person to hear their pain. And you sit there, even if it's just political stuff, it's pain. I believe this, and I feel strongly about it, and people tell me I'm crazy. That person never gets to explain how they're not crazy. So I'm going to be that person to say, I'm not going to judge whether you're right or wrong about what you believe. I'm simply just going to allow you to speak and allow that connection to be made.
Yeah.
So that we can bridge that, and you can say, you know what? I just realized I don't really know what you believe. And I know that because if you believed what I thought you believed, you wouldn't have listened to me. I mean, that's that bridge where you sit there and you just put yourself aside and listen. If you cannot put another person before yourself and care about them, that's where you start, and that's what you work on first before even getting into conversation, and try to prove people that you're right.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I've been thinking this whole time. I actually want to come back to a point that you said maybe like 10 minutes ago, and it was just a little snippet. You essentially said that most people don't care about other people. And I think that is probably the biggest factor in all this, is that most people genuinely don't care about other people. Like we like our friends, we like our family, but for the most part, you know, like I know we've been talking about politics is a very good representation of what we're talking about,
very polarizing.
And the dynamics of this. But it's also like, you know, that factoring in, a lot of people have this kind of us versus them mentality. They don't like other people. They don't like the other side.
People,
and even outside of politics, most people, you know, you accept the people that you know and you trust them. But, you know, like we're taught since kids, don't trust strangers.
That's what,
you know,
familiar
it's wired into us. So like when somebody approaches you, a stranger, and you're having a conversation, you're a lot more apprehensive towards anything like that. Like, you know, back to what we were saying, consider your objective. Are you somebody who's just trying to make friends with strangers? Nobody does that, or a lot of people don't. You know, the highest people with social class and high social value do, and they're able to talk to the CEO or the bum. You know, like
they're able to talk to the CEO running the company and the bum standing out in front of it asking for money.
Exactly.
They're able to create an instant bond through communication with both people within a minute of talking to them.
And that's what we're talking about.
That's
like,
the skill we all wish we had.
We want you guys to be this way. Like, I feel like I've cultivated that for myself. You know, there's some certain people that I don't care to talk to, but I will listen to them. You know, it comes down to, do you, like, most people don't like people. What is your objective? Is your objective to, I mean, even if your objective is to bolster your own ego, it's more effective to do it in a way where you listen to somebody that you don't like, because they will like you. They will start to compliment you. They will start to ask what you think about certain things if you just give them the space. So I think what a lot of people have come to is, I'm right. I only care about people in my close circle. Fuck everybody else. There's no reason why I'd ever want to connect with somebody, because I have my little bubble, and that's all that matters, because I'm validated inside my bubble and my comfort zone. But that doesn't get you anywhere socially. That doesn't improve your it doesn't improve your social status. If you're trying to be a dynamic person to where in any situation, like, I feel like if someone came up to me and was trying to rob me at gunpoint, I could talk them out of it. Even if they took my shit, I still feel like I could get to them. And I don't feel like I would get shot for it. I truly believe that. And even somebody who's pointing a gun in my face, I would challenge them. I'm not gonna try to fight them to where they want to pull the trigger, but I'm gonna challenge them in a way where they question what they're doing, and that they have to reconcile what they're actually doing to another person. And I do that in conversation in the same way that people come aggressive. Like if people become aggressive towards me in conversations, I get Socratic. I start asking them questions. I listen, but I expose what they're trying to do. And it's not that I'm trying to win an argument. I'm actually not.
It's staying neutral and being like, and just pointing out facts. This is what you're doing.
Right.
And they're like,
it's question.
okay, yeah, so what? And you're like, why?
Yeah.
And they're like, cause I'm going through stuff. And it's like, what are you going through?
We all are.
But the way I come off is genuine. What are you going through? Why does this motherfucker care? I'm stealing your car. Why do you care? This is what I'm going through. I'm going to tell you, throw it in your face because you don't understand. And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, wow,
Like,
I'm
all right,
sorry.
man. Hey, there's.
And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, I'm sorry, man. Like, and I'm going to throw something in that's related that shows you that I'm not just saying that. I mean it.
Yeah, like, hey, we're all struggling out here, man. I get it.
And then
Like,
you're going to stop
you want my
and you're going to
stuff?
be like,
Here you go, dude.
I mean, honestly, the stuff like that is what stops a lot of this. It's a proven thing that that method stops a lot of burglaries, carjackings, murders. It does stop stuff. I mean, there's so many stories of people going to rob a place and a person's like, hey, like, you're going through stuff. Like, I'll give you the money. They're like, but I want to pray for you. And this and that. Like, like you don't need to do this. Like, you have so much. I'm not going to sit here and report you. But like, I want you to understand. And the person just breaks down and it's like, I'm sorry. Why? Because nobody's ever listened to them. And when you feel like you're alone, that's when you start to become extreme. And it's basically based on everything you just said. I think what people underestimate is the power of pain. The pain in your past is what makes you feel like you have to be right. The pain in your past is what makes you feel like nobody else matters. The pain in your past is what tells you you're right and everybody else is wrong.
You need validation.
And all of these things are what lead you to say, I need people to just agree with me, to show me that I'm valid because they're wrong. It's because of unresolved pain where most of all of this stuff comes from, realistically. And to win an argument isn't to go into an argument with the intention of proving to somebody that they're wrong. To win an argument is to simply just listen to somebody because you care about them. And then having a conversation with them that's neutral and necessary. So if somebody tells me this is how I see all this political stuff and this and that, I'm not going to sit there and try to tell them how they're wrong about how they view these political people. Because I don't know if they're wrong or right. I don't know them. I don't know the political people on a personal enough level to add into the conversation of them being wrong. But I can attack the heart of it, which is, why are you so passionate, though? Like, I get that you believe this person is doing all this stuff and it's all this, they're the heart of all the evil. But what it really comes down to is, why are you afraid? Let's say this is that evil. Let's say you're right on everything. Why are you so scared? Well, because everything will end. Yeah, but you're strong. You're tough. We can, we can take this together, or we can just feel alone as an individual that's never been listened to and say the world's ending and I'm going to die alone. That's the energy behind it. But when you sit there and you say, hey, I don't agree with anything you're saying, but I've listened to you for a half hour. Just go on. That person's going to go, nobody's ever listened to me like that. Yes, because I care about you. Yeah. I don't care about all the political stuff. I care about us. I think we all understand divide and conquer. So why are we allowing ourselves to be divided? Why are you not trying to understand my side? Why do I have to be the one always trying to understand everybody else's side? If everybody cares about each other so much, and that's the argument of all politics, is like, we care about people more, which is why you're wrong. You're hurting people. No. We're the ones trying to save people. You don't know how you're hurting people. It's like, hold on. I care about all of you. I want to hear you all out. But realistically, we're not hurting each other if we all come together and say, hey, let's listen to each other. Let's talk. And let's realize we all want lower taxes. We all want equal rights. And we all want to feel safe. We all want opportunity. And we all want to be able to feel like we can do anything that we choose to do. Okay. Like, there's no controversy there.
Yeah.
The controversy comes into inserting yourself over other people. And in politics, that's what a lot of it's become, is your side's wrong because you're asserting yourself over other people. We're only asserting ourselves over other people because you guys have been asserting yourself over other people. It's like, all right, let's stop that argument. Let me not assert myself over you.
Yeah.
Let me hear you out. Let me hear why you see everything. And then let me show you that I can disagree, but still give you that attention, that respect, and that love.
Yeah.
So that you know that even if we disagree, one thing is not true, and that's you're not being asserted over. We're all equal. We all love each other. We just need to figure out these differences. But if we don't listen to each other, those differences become the thing that we wage war against.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what it comes down
that's,
to.
That's another thing too. Like at least in political context or in any type of argument or controversy or just in anything in general, you know, like instead of, you know, like you kind of just have to ask the person like how things ought to be. What does it look like? You know, elaborate on that further. Like what if you're so against this one thing, like how should they be? And then that's the area where you find common ground, because it's like, oh, well, you know, yeah, people should have the ability to, you know, move throughout the system financially. I'm like, oh, well, I agree with that. I think that's part of the problem. I think we should all, you know, move, you know, those are the kind of things that allow you to have common ground versus opposition. And I think
There's
that's
one big problem, and we all see half of the problem through different eyes. If we come together, we can go, hey, we can actually fix the problem together. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like you're saying, like, oh, you see this as a compromise. Well, I see that as a compromise. If we stop and come together, suddenly these things don't matter if we're together. It's the middle ground. And that's what we need to focus on. But if you separate to the point where you just don't believe the other side can see your side, and you don't believe that is an option, listening to people and hearing them out is not an option for you, that's already war. And you at some point you have to accept, do I hate people so much that I just want to kill them because I think they're wrong? Or do I want to acknowledge how messed up that is and say, you know what? I'm not a bad person. I love people. So instead of just believing they're wrong, maybe I should listen to them and accept that I might not be right. Let me put my ego aside and say, maybe I should listen to them. Don't listen to them to prove them wrong. Listen to them to see what they can add to what you know. So I'll try to absorb somebody's entire perspective the way they see it. I won't apply it to what I know. I try to listen to how they say it and see it the way they see it. And sometimes I surprise myself and it's like, oh, I've never heard of that perspective. Like, that is so unique, but in a lot of ways it makes sense. I don't think it's 100% right, but I'm also realizing that what I had isn't 100% right. And if I apply what I know to these few points they said, even if it's just a few points, it changes everything I viewed on this topic dramatically to the point where it's not the same way I viewed it. They could say just a couple things. If I listened to them for 20 minutes and only 30 seconds of that really affected me, that 30 seconds that I had never heard, that's unique to that person, could change me in how I view things and how I see other people, and what allows me to connect to them helps me to connect to others. And the more that I listen, the more I try to connect and love people, the more I suddenly relate to people. And then all of a sudden, the problem starts to get solved. What's the problem? There's racists, there's homophobes, there's, sexists, there's all these people who just hate people. Well, how do we fix that?
Yeah.
You yourself say, I want to be the change I want to see in the world. It's something we hear all the time. We've heard it since we were kids. It seems kind of corny, but at the end of the day,
what is the change I want to see in the world? Well, right now everything's divided and everybody hates each other and everybody fights and families are falling apart because they can't agree on anything. So what kind of change would I want to see? I want to see people love each other and care.
Right.
Okay, should I be mad that it's not like that and feed into it? Or should I sit there and say, I'm going to be the person who listens, who cares, who wants to see the other person's perspective, not just to help myself grow, but genuinely to try to understand all these people around me,
Right.
because they're not different. They're not aliens. I don't hate them. They're all beautiful, exotic creatures like myself. And I want to know what's in their heads because I know mine's crazy. So what the heck's going on all around me?
Right.
You should want to hear what another mind has to pour out on you.
And I think that in a lot of ways, people are apprehensive and things have been so divided. And I have a point that I'm going to get to, but first I want to paint the picture of, it's like everyone's it's so divided and we're so sectioned off into our bubbles with media and stuff like that, where, it's, if somebody approaches you and starts talking to you, you get a weird vibe from it. You assume that they want something, and a lot of times they do. And that's just where we're at. Most people, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. What's your objective? If someone walks up and talks to you, 90% of the time they have an objective. They're not just a social deity that just goes around giving people value without getting something in return.
Yeah.
But if you don't look at it like that way, if you do that yourself, if you go around and validate other people, it's going to come back to you. I mean, that's kind of how it works. That's how you build your social status and overall become a well-rounded person. Is even if someone that you disagree with, you're talking to someone you disagree with, it doesn't matter what they say, and if they disagree with you, you could just validate them all day, and then they're still going to like you. And that kind of comes down to, I wouldn't even say manipulation, but this is a deeper level. This is going further than the, ego validation of your own self. Because if you truly scrap all of that and say, I don't need to be validated by anybody, I'm deeply rooted in my beliefs. If someone offers something that actually challenges my belief, I'm going to accept it and I'm going to go into that. But for the most part, if you're pretty rooted in your beliefs, you don't have to force it on other people. You can simply allow people to exist in your space and gain favor from them, not for an egotistical objective reason, but just simply to it's kind of a contradiction.
Simply to connect.
When I say it's not that you are manipulating somebody to better yourself. It really comes down to a humanity level.
Yes.
If
it's
you're enlightened,
intention. Is your intention
Right,
to prove somebody wrong? Is
Right,
your
well,
intention to try to grow yourself? Or is your intention simply to love this person and get to know them?
Right.
You know what? We don't know what's going on. I genuinely just want to hear you. If that's the intention, you go into the conversation, they feel that and they go, I'm saying some wild shit and they're not even challenging me. They're not interrupting me. They want me to finish. They want to see this all the way through. They can tell I'm passionate, but they're not taking my passionate and reacting and going, your passion's misguided. You're wrong. They're sitting there. They want to hear me out. They want to see they want me to tell them all the examples that I have in my mind that back up and justify this passion for this view. And like I said, that's as that person goes on, that's where you see that's like you said, that steam goes out. And then it turns into, okay, I'm going to actually tell you. And their way of communication will change, because if you let somebody speak long enough, the defenses go down and then they just start opening up and talking.
Yeah.
And that's when you
then you can have
hear them.
construction.
Yeah.
And that's
You can't go into the conversation saying, I'm going to listen to this person so that I can show them I'm right. Because that in itself is still ego saying that you're right. How do you know you're right? If you can look at this person and know they're wrong, chances are you are too. Because what credentials do you have that they don't? Well,
Right,
I
and-
read the news and I decipher it better. It's like, yeah, but if your view is that a lot of what we hear is misinformation from both sides, then none of us really know. So if none of us really know, let me just listen to you, not because the context of what you're saying matters in my life, but because allowing you to speak and get this out. All the stuff that's going on is affecting all of us. So I'm going to give my brother, my sister, I'm going to give these other people a chance to get it out.
Yeah.
And that is what makes the difference. That is what brings us closer. You know what? I've actually had conversations with people where it started off as us trying to prove each other wrong. And when I change my perspective halfway through, and like literally it's a night and day shift where it's like I'm trying to prove I'm right and they're wrong and they're doing the same thing. And then I stop halfway through, acknowledge what I'm doing, and I'm like, I'm going to be genuine. And I let all of my stuff go, and I look at them, I go, no, you said this. I want to know more about that because that does make sense. Can you explain that to me? And then they're like, yeah, I can explain it. Yeah, I'll explain it to you. And they go into it. And then as they go, it goes from I know this is what it is to and then this and that. And the way I see all this stuff working, and when you see this and that, and it's like, okay, this isn't just emotion. There is an intelligent mind. Once the emotion goes down, there's an intelligent mind that has good reasoning behind it. But if I try to have every conversation at a high emotional level, I'm not going to be able to pull all of my thoughts together, and I know they won't either. So what's the point of it? The point of it is only to create more of a divide. Literally, within that conversation, for me to join in knowing that if I try to push my views on them, it will drive them away. What's the biggest problem in this country? Well, it's divide, and it's your views that are dividing us. And I'm going to prove to you that your views are dividing the country. Hold on, you're the one starting the conversation dividing.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that simply by going into a conversation with the intention of proving them wrong is in itself feeding a divide. If you want to try to be the change in the world that you want to see, then you have to look at that other person that you disagree with and say, I genuinely want to know what's going through your head. Not because I want you to prove me right or prove me wrong, but I feel like you deserve to get it out. Nobody's ever probably let you speak your mind. So right. I'm going to give you the floor.
It's a very, like, if you know, and I probably have to leave pretty soon, but at least as a closing statement for me, you know, it's a very enlightened position to be at where you, in that way, you can allow someone to purely exist based on your inquisitiveness. You know, if, like I said, if you're rooted in your beliefs, it doesn't matter. They can come at you with every argument in the book, and it's not about you arguing back. It's about you giving them the space to exist, because it's not an argument at that point. It becomes their expression of humanity.
Sharing each other.
You're sharing in this experience. So, you know, even to take it a step further, instead of just listening, dive into it. Ask them about themselves.
Yes.
Validate them. Give them value, because
if they say something you don't agree with, instead of saying they're wrong, stop and go, maybe I'm wrong. I want to know what you know about this. Then they don't get that feeling of, I disagree, I don't believe. It's more of like this area I have a problem with, I want to know more. And then they're like, oh, you're willing. You might not agree with me, but if you're willing to hear what I have to say, I'll go on all day.
Right. And that's what
brings us together.
It's not manipulation.
Because the intention is purely love. Manipulation manipulation broken down is
it's all about your goal. If you're trying to manipulate somebody, you're like, oh, tell me more. And then you're trying to get something from them. If you're just simply trying to gain a connection or at least build rapport with somebody, maybe you have an end.
But at the end of the conversation, the point of who's right or wrong doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's no one getting hurt in that.
Exactly.
It's not manipulation if you're trying to it's only manipulation if you're trying to do it at an end.
Broken down, manipulation is basically when you go into a situation planning to get something out of it.
Taking advantage of situations.
When you go into a situation with yourself put first. In any way, that's manipulation.
Yeah.
If you're like, how do I explain this to my girlfriend, this situation that happened, that doesn't make me look a certain way.
Right.
It's like, why don't you just open up and just say what it was and hope that person understands that you see it the way they see it.
And if you're trying to have a
it's like it's going to look so much worse if it seems like I'm navigating it to be like,
Right.
well, let me control this. It's like
Right.
Are you manipulating
You're
me
letting
to
go
make
control.
me see it a certain way and not allow me to make my own decision?
if you're
That
simply just
creates
trying
divide.
to ask somebody to build rapport with them, it's not manipulation. It's kind of
love.
It's transcendence.
I want to hear
You're
what you have to say because I
transcending-
love you. I
you're-
don't care if I'm right or you're right.
Right,
I don't
like-
care. I just want to let you talk.
You
and I
are
wanna hear you 'cause
transcending
you're
your
a
own
human.
You're transcending your own ego to allow someone else's ego to exist, knowing that you will get a social benefit from that. And it's not that you have an inherent goal from that benefit. You're just trying to advance your own social existence.
It's not
and I think-
manipulation to drink milk because it'll give you strong bones and it'll make you grow taller. You might know that being taller and being stronger. No, seriously, you might think.
I had a point. I want to elaborate on.
But I'm just saying, going off of that, it's if I want to be strong and big, yeah, I have goals. My goal is to be stronger and bigger and have an advantage. If I drink milk, that's not manipulation in the sense of I'm trying to gear this in a certain direction. No, it's what I'm doing is right. Why would my body get bigger and stronger? Because this is the right thing to do. Why would my connection with this person get better? It's not manipulation. This is the right thing to do. Care about them and listen to them. I'm not manipulating. I'm being genuine, and
you
that's
have
the
the milk.
difference.
You have the milk jug. You're drinking it, and you offer someone else the milk jug. Said, you should drink that milk. It'll make you strong. All right, I'll drink it too. It's the difference between, oh, you have milk? Let me get some of that milk and get strong. That's manipulation. But if you have the milk, if you make your own milk, and you're like, here, you want some of my milk? Fucking weird
me.
analogy.
Not
You
me.
brought it up.
I got my own milk
I was going on,
from the store.
and I guess
Not my
I think
friends.
everybody probably gets what I was trying to say. You get what I was trying to say, but
Yeah, it's
it's
all about
only
intention.
manipulation if you have a
if you have yourself first.
Yes.
If I
A
go into a
selfish goal.
conversation with the goal, my goal is I want to hear them. But what are you gaining? I'm gaining understanding of this person. I want this person to show me who they are. Well, what do you gain? Understanding. Well, that helps you.
you gain their
It's like,
favor.
yeah,
I mean,
that
that's
helps
not-
me. But if I do something right, if I plant a tree that gives the whole town fruit, and now I also have fruit, who did it hurt? They have food and I have food. As long as I don't tell them as long as I keep it open and we all get to pick from the tree, I just grew the tree because I knew it would help all of us. So me talking to this person, yeah, it's going to help me because it gives me insight into them. But at the same time, it's going to help them because they get to speak and share themselves. So it's a mutual exchange.
Yeah.
There's no manipulation because it's mutual exchange. The same way as they have filled my head with their thoughts, and I have chosen to ask for them. It's like I can't use this against you because I genuinely heard every aspect. The only thing that would be manipulative is me going into it with the intention of I don't want to absorb what you have to say. Instead, I'll listen to you, but I'm going to wait for something you say to trigger me to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So you're not hearing me, you're just listening to the words to ready for an attack. It's like, yeah. Well, that's manipulation. That's not genuine. You don't really care about me, you care about the idea.
Yeah,
So you
the
put the idea of being right ahead of the communication. So you don't care about the person you're talking to, you care more about what you're talking about. And that in itself just self-destructs the entire intention of an exchange at all. You go into it like guns a-blazing without even realizing that you walked into this conversation hostile. It's like, what did I do wrong? I just went and said they were wrong. They were wrong. It's like, wow, you don't understand how selfish that sounds. Yes, from your view, you're right.
Yeah.
But from everybody else, you walked up and said that person's views meant nothing, that they're not intelligent enough to even be heard out. And for that reason, it's your turn to talk, to explain and educate. It's really dark if you look at it. It's really freaking dark. It's
I want to have a final sentence and then I gotta go. But I would say for anyone out there who's trying to better themselves socially, build strong relationships, set aside your ego intentionally, listen to people, go beyond that, ask them about themselves. Ask them to explain their beliefs. Don't be controversial for the sake of being right. Truly try to build rapport with people on a level where you are dissolving your ego completely. And, it's not manipulation to just feed into their ego. Give them the validation they need within reason. And ultimately, if you have a goal in mind to better that person or maybe change their mind, do it in a way where they're accepting of what you have to say, and they're open to you as a person, and they consider you a friend, because that's the only way you're going to do it. In today's society, everybody is closed off. So, without that power, you're going to feel socially separated. And I think we all could take a page from that book and just set aside our egos and try to, find common ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Along with that, I think the biggest thing in communication is to understand that the reason you're talking to this person is because you want to hear them. If you have a conversation and you don't want to hear what they have to say, you should stop that conversation, because you're not going to add anything good, and it's not going to be progressive. Your intentions are, I don't care what they say, so you shouldn't act like it. You should either be genuine or just bow out. You shouldn't try to convince yourself that what you have to say to them matters if you don't care, if you don't believe they matter. I do want to get more into the conversation thing for the next episode. I think we got a lot in tonight, and I think we got some big hitters coming up.
Yeah.
But until then, meta perspective out.
Meta Perspective Podcast.